Do you want to be rich? Growing up in a single-income family in South Korea, I've never felt rich if it's all about money or materials. However, I've never felt poor because I had everything I needed. I had a roof over my head and food to eat, and most of all, I had people to laugh and cry together. How do you define wealth in your life? And what does Jesus teach us about it? In the month of November, we want to take a chance to redefine these important values of life, success, wealth, and happiness through the lens of faith, through Jesus' teaching. And today, Pastor Chris will help us to redefine what it means to be rich through Jesus' parable, the parable of the dishonest manager, probably one of the most challenging or ambiguous parables in the Gospels. Let's get started our worship with open hearts and open minds as we lift up our voice in praise of God.
From Jerusalem to the nations we will go. From Jerusalem, Lord, let your healing flow. From Jerusalem, just like in days of old, to the world we will go. Come on, let's just declare that together. From Jerusalem to the nations we will go. From Jerusalem, Lord, let your healing flow. From Jerusalem, just like in days of old, to the world we will go. So we say together, send us out. Send us out and we will go. Send your power, let it flow. Lord, take us to the world. Every tribe and every tongue. Every tribe and every tongue. It's your will that Lord worship you today. We give you all the glory, for you're holy, you're mighty. We reverence your name, our defender, our banner, our healer, our strong tower. We lift your name today because we recognize there's no one else like you. There's no one who can keep us. No one can save us. No one can love us. No one can do us like you do. Our refuge and strength. And so we give you all the glory. We give you all the glory in the ups and downs, the hills and the valleys. We give you all the glory, for you are worthy, worthy, worthy to be praised. There is none like you. Remember that chorus? No one else can touch my heart like you do. I could search for all eternity long and find there is none like you. Help me say it, Kate.
There is none like you. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I could search for all eternity long and find there is none like you.
Come on, one more time. Let's sing it all together. There is none. There is none like you. Yeah. No one else can touch my heart like you do.
No one.
I can search for all eternity, Lord, and find there is none. There is none. Yeah, there is none. Say it together. Like you. God, we worship you and we give you the glory, for there's no one like you. Thank you, Jesus.
Hi, I'm JiSun, member at Haddonfield United Methodist Church. My journey to HUMC began in 2013. Years of scandal and abuse had disenchanted me from the denomination I had followed my whole childhood. My wife and I didn't have a good connection with the church that she was attending. On top of that, the increased pressures at work and the pressures of being a father to our newborn son had left me burnt out. Also, I was trying to please everyone else but myself and ended up having to leave my job. So I was professionally and spiritually lost. Tom Lank, a dear friend of mine from college, reached out one day and said, "Jeff, I happen to move back into the area and I'm associate pastor at HUMC. I'd love for you and Amber to come by and check it out." So, as a favor to Tom, Amber and I decided to go to the contemporary service. It was only as a favor to Tom. However, we were overwhelmed and pleasantly surprised by the warm welcome and friendliness we received from all the members. It was before the pandemic, so we were able to greet and meet members at the beginning of the contemporary service. Thanks to that welcome, Amber and I decided to become regular visitors at HUMC. Moving forward a couple months, I decided to participate in one of the many HUMC ministries, the Job Seekers Support Group. I had to find a new job, and I needed to find something that would give me a good work-life balance. The leaders at the Job Seeker Support Group and the fellow participants were very welcoming, gave me great advice, and did countless reviews of my resume. And thanks to all of that, I was able to find the job that to this day provides me the best work-life balance I've ever had. In just a few years, HUMC had given us so many blessings. I had a new job. We had found a loving church community, and we had found a trusted place where Amber and I could send our oldest son, Sam, for childcare at Mother's Morning Out. It was time for Amber and me to give back. We had Sam baptized, we joined as members, I joined the mission ministry, and a few years later, we had our second son, Ben, baptized. And Tom Lank, though no longer with the church, did come back to perform the baptism for Ben. Things at HUMC were going great, and then 2020 and the pandemic hit. Even though we were all forced to shelter in place, our church leadership and staff went above and beyond to help maintain a connection with all of its members. Thanks to Facebook Live and YouTube, we were able to watch a live virtual service or a recorded one. Sam and I were able to record children's messages to spread the word of God to our young members. Sam was able to participate in a virtual Joyful Hearts choir, and Sam and Ben were able to participate in virtual Sunday school. HUMC gifted us with a rebirth, and I am paying it forward now so that other families can have the wonderful experience that we've had. I'm a regular contributor to the Daily Reflections. I serve on the production team at the Contemporary Service, and I'm a member of Church Council. Now, Amber and I want to do even more, and we have committed financial resources to HUMC's stewardship campaign. We want to continue thanking HUMC for everything it has given us. We want HUMC to give other families in the near and distant future the same blessings that we have received. And we want HUMC's missions and outreach to be sustainable for future generations. That's why we have committed to the stewardship campaign, and I hope you will as well. Information on the stewardship campaign is below.
Hello and welcome to our online service today. We are so glad that you choose to worship with us in this online space, wherever or whenever you may be. If you are looking for a community to find a sense of belonging, or if you have prayers or concerns you want to lift up, please let us know by using our online connect card. The link can be found on the screen. And we would love to hear from you and connect with you. I see this is really challenging season for everyone as we try to figure out what's going on in the world and what's going to be our next steps as an individual or a community getting out of the pandemic. Nothing has been the same, and sometimes I feel dizzy from the speed of quick changes in the world. But still, we have the mission to do as God called us to do and call us to be by sharing the good news and the message of hope for people around us. And if you are interested in how the church runs this season or wondering about the responses to the recent feasibility study, we invite you to join our State of the Church meeting on November 13th in person. We will talk about our church vision and financial position this time. This is an open meeting hosted by Pastor Chris with light refreshment. In this season of Thanksgiving, we invite you to a special mission project we are working on with one of our mission partners, the Neighborhood Center, for our Thanksgiving food drive to help families in need. It is easy to participate in it. You can find the shopping list at haddonfieldumc.org/now or pick up the shopping list at the Welcome Center with a grocery bag. After your shopping, you can drop them off anytime to the church by November 20th. Or your monetary donation can be really helpful by choosing the Thanksgiving food drive fund through our online giving. Have you ever experienced the power of music that speaks louder than words? Music is an important part of our ministry here at HUMC to glorify God, and we want to offer various concerts to the community and beyond this season. Our annual Mihar Lee Memorial Organ Recital will be on November 20th at 7 o'clock in our sanctuary, presented by Dr. Jens Kordofer with the amazing organ music. This is a free concert and everyone is welcome to join in person or online. Also, another concert is our New Jersey Methodist Chorale concert, offering their Christmas concert. Love Comes Down at Christmas, featuring Handel's Messiah with the Philadelphia Orchestra and friends and award-winning soloist. This is also a free concert and everyone is welcome, but tickets are required and you can get the tickets at haddonfieldemc.org. Both concerts will be live streamed on our website, and so please mark your calendar for this beautiful and free concert in person or online to celebrate this season with us. A week prior to New Jersey Methodist Chorale concert, we invite children and family for interactive family Christmas concert on December 4th at 4 o'clock. This is our new effort as a preview of the New Jersey Methodist Chorale annual concert with full choir members and various instruments and kids-friendly. After the concert, your family and children will be invited to an Advent workshop with various crafts to celebrate the Advent season. Please come and join this special event in these expectant seasons. I want to say thank you for worshiping with us through your generous giving today. We acknowledge your offering is an expression of your faith and a form of worship. We encourage you to continue to be a part of God's mission here at HMC as we plant a seed of hope and seed of love in and beyond our community. You can give online at haddonfieldemc.org/give anytime or text the word give to the number on the screen. Before we invite Pastor Chris for his message today, let us go to God in prayer and to center ourselves. Oh, loving and gracious God, we give you thanks for many gifts in our lives, especially in this space of worship, calling us and inviting us to be a part of your greater story. Open our hearts and mind as we listen to your word. Let us experience how good it is to walk with you this journey and with each other. We pray in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Have you ever worked hard without reaching success? Do you ever feel that others have more wealth? Do you ever think that if you had a little more, you'd be happy? Many of us spend our lives working hard to climb the ladder of success. But what happens if you get to the top of the ladder, only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall? Come ready to learn how Jesus teaches us to redefine success, wealth, and happiness.
Hi there. Let me ask you a question. Are you rich? Would you consider yourself to be wealthy? Well, those sort of questions always catch me off guard. I'll never forget the day that one of my daughters walked into the room and said, "Dad, are we rich?" And I'm sure she was watching a show on TV and was trying to understand where we were in terms of the world. Of course, my immediate response inwardly was, heck no, we don't have all the things that we would love to have. But how do you answer a child? And of course, it took some processing. Well, actually, yeah, we have a lot. In terms of compared to the person on the TV show that has a mansion and a helicopter, well, no, we don't have those things. But comparatively, we have a lot. And so it led to a great conversation to talk about everything that we have. If you think in terms of wealth, right, percentage of global wealth, the Northeast of the United States is in the top 10% easily of access to resources in the entire world. So compared with the average human being, over 7 billion people on the planet, we have access to clean water, education, infrastructure, housing, transportation, et cetera, food, all that. No matter where you are in terms of what you make or what you have, it really is a matter of our perspective. Are you rich? Are you wealthy? Well, you may have more than I do. You may have less than I do. But it's really a matter of perspective and also a definition of what is wealth. Well, let's look at the Internet Dictionary definition of wealth: an abundance of valuable possessions or money. Another says, an abundance or profusion of anything plentiful. So that's kind of how I took the conversation with my daughter was, well, what do we have? We have family. You have grandparents. We have 2 cars. We have an amazing house. We live in a great town. You go to a good school. And so it led to this awesome conversation with my daughter, and probably both daughters at that point, of what do we have in abundance. I'll never forget Jerry Seinfeld talking about this question he got from his kids. Dad, are we rich? And it was in an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. And his answer to his kids was, you're not, but I am, right? The joke there is that just because he has money doesn't mean it belongs to his kids. But the reality is we do have abundance. Can we see it? And how do we define wealth? Wealth, of course, is something that we pursue in life. We study, we work hard, we try and get a job, we try and build up assets that will support our values and our lifestyle. But what is it that we're pursuing? Well, this month in the sermon series, we're looking at how do we define the things that drive us as a society, but most importantly, how does Jesus redefine them for us? And as we seek to follow Jesus, how can that trickle into our lives to transform the way we live, to transform the way that we interact with resources, and to transform the way that we share what we have? I want to read from a gospel passage today from Luke. And this is chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. This is a parable of Jesus. Then Jesus said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager. Charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer. Then the manager said to himself, what will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes. So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, how much do you owe my master? He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 50. Then he asked another, and how much do you owe? He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourself by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into their eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in very little is faithful also in much. And whoever is dishonest in very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve 2 masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Well, this is another parable in the Gospel of Luke in which Jesus is talking about money, particularly our relationship with resources and assets. We've been talking last week and this week about the fact that Jesus preaches more about money than any other topic because there are spiritual implications for where we prioritize our time, our energy, and our goals. And this parable has a lot to teach us. But let me just first say that this is a challenging parable to understand and to interpret, because it seems on its face that Jesus is commending he says, use dishonest wealth to get friends for yourself. He's commending, or God is commending, a manager who was corrupt and ripped off his boss. It doesn't really seem to make much sense. Well, let's review it very quickly. The parable, possibly based on a well-known story. The other parable we looked at last week was based on a well-known story. So maybe this is something that people would have been familiar with. But there is a wealthy person who has a manager, and that manager is corrupt. And he finds that he is not a good manager. And so the boss is going to fire the manager. And the manager then finds ways to settle with all of the boss's clients so that they are favorable to him, so that they will want to hire him or want to write a reference to him. And so he eliminates people's debts by cutting it in half or cutting it by significant proportions. And here's the strange thing. Instead of being more upset, the owner says, you were shrewd. Look at you. You're very inventive and creative. You are to be lifted up for your shrewdness. And here's the point that Jesus is making, is that he says the people of this generation. Now, I've heard a lot of people talk about baby boomers and millennials and Generation X. Jesus also talks about this generation a lot, his generation. He's saying in this generation of people, they're pretty shrewd when it comes to making a buck, pretty shrewd with knowing how to arrange their lives money-wise or whatever to set themselves up and make themselves comfortable. He says people in this generation are more shrewd with their own people than are the children of light. And what he's saying is people are clever, they're inventive, they're creative, they're strategic when it comes to their own business interests. And yet, when it comes to God, people are often stingy, not creative, not inventive, not shrewd. And what he's saying is, be shrewd, be inventive, creative, courageous, curious, things I mentioned last week. Be all those things when it comes to God. And he then goes into these other things where he says, you cannot serve God and wealth. It comes down to who are we serving? And he's looking at people of his day who serve their own comfort, their own values, their own accrual of assets. And when it comes to covering themselves, they are pretty smart people. And yet when it comes to being inventive with how we are generous towards God and generous with the light God has given, he says people aren't as shrewd. Now, do me a favor. I want you to think very seriously about your asset allocation in life. And you might want to think about writing some of this down. What are you worth? What are your assets? Everything that you have. For me, our assets are generally in a few places. We have a checking account, savings account, a modest investment. We have a savings account for our children's education. And we have retirement accounts, both my wife and I. And we are very blessed, and we are very grateful for the assets, the gifts, the blessings that we have. And of course, we then make day-to-day decisions with our assets. So you may have those things, or some of those things. You may have other things. Homes, vehicles. Of course, we have possessions. We have things in our house. We have 2 cars. What are the things that you have that if you weren't here would be divided up, right? Now think in terms of where are most of your assets expended? What does it serve? I was thinking about this. Where do most of our month-to-month costs go? Well, housing costs, the cost of living in a home. That's a big one. Childcare for us. An 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, we spend money on childcare. Entertainment. We spend a lot of money on entertainment. Streaming services, phone, internet, things like that. Food. I would say our food expenses are high, both eating out and eating in. That's really where a lot of our priorities are spent. And then for me, technology. We spend a bit of money on technology, whether it's iPads, phones, computers, whatever that is. And I was thinking about, what does that say about our values as a family? And it really, our values are spent in living comfortably, eating well, and being entertained. And you may relate to that. You may not relate to that. You may not spend a lot on entertainment. You may have a small food bill. We all make decisions, and they point to our values. Now, I want you to think about, what are your values? Where do you spend a lot of your resources? Is it travel? Do you like experiences? Maybe you don't have a lot of housing costs, but maybe you like to travel, go on vacation. Whatever it is, what does it reveal about your values? You see, in this parable, there's a very important line in which the owner, the master, says to the manager, he says, give an account of your stewardship. Now, some translations say, give an account of your management, but a more accurate translation is, give an account of your stewardship, how you have been stewarding that which I have been entrusting to you. And this is a very important part of following Jesus and the Jesus journeys, because what he's constantly trying to say to his disciples is, what you have is not yours. The book of Ecclesiastes, we looked in September in a sermon series, says the same thing. You work hard, you get money, and then you die, and it goes to somebody who didn't deserve it. What you have is really just yours for a little while. So give an account of your stewardship. What are you doing with what you have? Last week, I looked at how Jesus defines success. He doesn't define success by, oh, that person's successful because they're an actor. That person's successful because they're famous. That person's successful because they have a lot of money. No, Jesus' idea of success and definition for us is, what do you do with what you have? And you may say, well, I don't have a lot in my bank account. I don't have a lot of assets. You know, as I think about what we have, it is very easy to say, we're saving for a kid's education, but we're not saving enough. We don't have enough. We're saving for retirement, but we don't have enough, right? I looked at the average cost of a private college. I went to a private school for seminary. My wife went to a private school for college. So if our kids were to go to similar schools, the average cost right now is $39,000 a year before you get into room and board and other expenses. And I know a lot of schools, tuition is over $40,000, $50,000. And my girls are going to go to school 8 and 10 years from now. So no matter what we're saving, chances are it's not enough. So it is easy for us to say, whatever I have, I don't have enough, right? I'm not wealthy. I'm not rich because I don't have as big of a house as you do. I don't have as nice of a car as that person does. And this is how our society runs messaging, right? If you want to be successful, you want to go there. You want to get this. You want to become more successful, get more things. And so we're constantly hearing the messaging. You don't have enough. You don't have enough. You're not wealthy. You're not rich yet. But if you do this, if you work hard, if you, and it becomes pitches to sell us on messages that really put us on a never-ending treadmill. But what Jesus says is, success is what you do with what you have, and then therefore wealth is what you have. What do you have, and how can we move from an idea of scarcity, that I don't have enough, that we haven't saved enough, we're not doing enough, not enough, scarce, resources are scarce, to really acknowledge, like what I was trying to share with my daughters, is we have enough. We have abundance, that we've been given wealth. My wealth might not be as much or might be more than your wealth, and your wealth might be bigger, but it's not about comparing. It is about make an account of your stewardship. How are you stewarding your assets? And so I'll get back to this where do you spend your resources and your time? Like I said, for us, it's comfort, entertainment, food, security, basic security. Jesus says, the people of this generation are more shrewd than the children of light. Who are the children of light? Well, in Matthew 5, Jesus says to his disciples, you are the light of the world. Let your light shine so everyone sees your good works and will give thanks to God in heaven. So if we seek to follow Jesus and if we seek to live in God's reign, we become children of light. And what Jesus wants us to do is to be just as calculated, just as creative, just as driven with how we share light as we are with how we seek success and the accrual of wealth and comfort and assets. So I'll come back to where do we spend our resources? Think about everything that you have, everything you give, everything you do, everything you share. What do we invest in sharing light? If we want to follow Jesus, we are children of light. And how do we use what we have to share light in this world? Last week, I shared 4 values that are really important to me: curious, creative, courageous, and caring. And I shared in one moment in my sermon last week that lots of times I have seen within the institutional church kind of a failure to identify with those values. That often we're not curious, but instead, when it comes to our approach to God, in business, people are very creative, right? They're willing to take risks, willing to do a lot of stuff. But when it comes to our approach to faith, we can become stuck, resistant to change, closed-minded, judgmental, and fearful. And what I believe Jesus in this parable is trying to say to us is, friends, you have an abundance. Be shrewd with it. Be inventive with it. Be courageous with it. I've seen graphics about church growth and revitalization, and I've seen graphics that look at declining churches and how they behave. Organizations, churches, businesses, usually when they are fear-driven and they don't take risks and they don't operate from a sense of vision or creativity, it leads to decline. But growing churches, just like any growing organization, is more vision-driven, about a creative vision and a hope for the future, willingness to take calculated risks, and willingness to invest assets in trying something new for the purpose of the mission. And Jesus invites us as people of faith, both as individuals as well as a church, is to be shrewd, which really means to be good stewards, to be creative, to be courageous, to be caring, and to always be curious about what does God want us to do here and now. How are you and how can you share light with what you have? You may feel at times like you don't have enough. You don't have what you want. You may struggle to pay bills. You may struggle to make up debt. You may struggle to be prepared for retirement. But what do you have in abundance? And how do you share that? Whether it's relationships, whether it's joy, whether it's your spirit, whether it's finances, whether it's time, whether it's creativity. The question is, how can you be a spiritual entrepreneur? What's an entrepreneur? Someone who's always looking around for new ways to make money, right? Or new ways to start something. They see what is possible. An entrepreneur will start a venture or business. A spiritual entrepreneur is to see people who are hurting, people who don't have food, people who are isolated, and also see what's possible, take risks, invest, cast vision, and allow God to do something new through them. Growing up, I grew up in a community with a lot of farmers around. We were not farmers, but a lot of our neighbors were farmers. And a lot of those farmers didn't have a lot of financial assets. But one thing was always true growing up, is that it seemed that everyone had more than enough food. And it was very common for us, for people to drop in, just to stop in to talk, and they would stay for dinner. My mom always made more food than we needed. My neighbors the same. And it was very common to drop in or have unexpected visitors or guests. And there was, even though there might have been limited financial resources, there was always the spirit of abundance when it came to sharing community. You know what I remember about several of those farmers is that when they died, they had very, very little to their name. But what they had in abundance were people who came and talked about their generosity, talked about their friendliness, talked about their heart and how much they helped others and how much they shared others. It's not about having a certain amount of something. It's about what are you doing with what you have? And what Jesus says is, don't hoard the light and don't say, I don't have enough. Take what you have and be shrewd with it. Be inventive with it. Be creative with it. Be adventurous with it for the sake of growing God's kingdom here on earth. I would say that Jesus' definition of wealth is whatever abundance that you have that can be shared for the purpose of growing God's kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. I'll say that again. Whatever you have in abundance that can be shared for the purpose of growing God's kingdom, that is true wealth. Jesus says, make friends with, as he says, dishonest wealth, which he defines all money, right? All money is this dollar might have been earned dishonestly, or this dollar might come from a corrupt corporation, and it all kind of goes through our hands. Use what we have to build up God's kingdom, to create friendships, to create partnerships, to sow seeds of light, so that when we don't have material items to define or to protect or to give us security, we have wealth and treasure in God's kingdom. The one who's faithful in a little is faithful in a lot. I think about that. Those who are generous tippers at the restaurant are most likely people who are generous givers. When we are stingy in little ways, we tend to operate from scarcity and be stingy in big ways. Friends, you are the light of the world, the salt of the earth. If we seek to follow Jesus, we are children of light. So go, use what you have. Be shrewd, inventive, creative, generous, sharing. Invest in other people. Share it for the sake of growing God's kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. Next week, we're going to redefine happiness as Jesus does for us. I'm grateful that you've joined us here. Come back next week, share this service, and I'll look forward to seeing you in person or virtually. Take care.